Hi everyone, I'm Jo from Country Cow Designs. So this is the part 1 of the Momexa Sewalong that we're doing today. We're not actually going to start for a few minutes, we're going to start at 5 o'clock, but we wanted to start early to do an audio check, a camera check, and just give time for everybody to join. So if you're watching this later on, you can just skip the first few minutes because nothing interesting is going to happen right now. But I've just got a thumbs up from Debbie, so that means the audio is working and you guys can actually hear me. So I'm just going to check. We've got a second camera going on over here, and I'm just trying to check that you can actually see what's happening here. So Debbie, can you see my hand above the fabrics?
It's on a delay.
Oh yeah, it's on delay. So you might not know that YouTube runs about 10 to 15 seconds behind the live, so that's always a little bit weird when we're trying to get used to it. Okay, so we're all good for the cameras. So you've got a couple of minutes. If you want to get a cup of tea, just go ahead and grab a cup of tea or something like that. But we'll get started at 5 o'clock, which is in 2 minutes time here. I know for a lot of you it's actually the morning, so hi everybody. So we've got people from all over. Ooh, Saskatchewan, Canada. Hopefully I said that right. Charlotte, NC. Ooh, California. Oh, I bet it's nice there. And Ontario and Florida. Sounds nice and warm. Oh, we've got somebody from Sweden as well. Hiya. You're on about the same time zone as us, aren't you? Nearly. So it's kind of dinner time over here. Oh yeah, so Tammy, there's no delay for you guys, but there is for us. It's very odd. So I say something, but it doesn't actually come through on YouTube until 10 to 15 seconds later. So when I'm asking Debbie if she can hear me or see me, I have to wait for her response. It's really bizarre. Oh, cool. We've got people from Scotland and Wales. Hiya. Thanks for joining us. New York City. I went there once. So nice. France. Oh, that's exciting. Got a nice international mix here. Okay, so we're going to get started. Hi to everybody that's just joined. We're going to get started in just a minute. Just waiting for everyone to join, just to check that we start on time. All the sounds okay, Debs? Yep. Nice and clear?
Yeah, it's all going really smoothly.
Yay. So far. Okay, good. Oh, we got somebody from Trinidad as well. That's pretty cool. Leicestershire. Washington, Swansea, oh, Virginia and Vancouver, Arizona. Wow, everybody's from all around. That's really cool. So we've got people who it's probably like first thing in the morning for you, and then for us it's dinner time. I feel sorry for anybody that's in Australia because I think it's like the middle of the night. Okay, here we go. Right, we're up to 5 o'clock, so we're going to get started. So this is going to be part 1 of 4 sessions for the Momexa Sewalong. So let me just check this warning that's just come up from YouTube. Okay, so it says that you might get some buffering. I'm hoping that it's going to go okay. We'll see. This is our first live, so just feel free to comment if there's a problem. Okay, so we're making the Momexa in this Sewalong, so I'll just grab one. Okay, so this is the Momexa handbag. There's also an option to add an exterior zipper pocket as well. Now, we're going to do this in 4 sessions. This is the first session, and this is just preparation, which, in my opinion, is like a really, really essential part of bag making. It's really important to get the preparation right because your whole project can just fail if you don't. So choosing fabrics that are appropriate to your sewing machine, that's absolutely essential, or else you could get halfway through the bag and you can find that you can't do the final top stitch or something like that, or there's just a section that you cannot do because your machine can't handle it, and that can be devastating. Also, if you use like the wrong interfacing, wrong stabilisers, that can ruin it. Hardware that's no good. I've had bags that I've finished and it's turned out that the hardware has sort of like shed its colour and it's just ruined a perfectly finished bag, so that can be pretty heartbreaking. Using the wrong materials. So this bag I used some cheaper vinyl on, and I'll see if you guys can see when I top stitch it that the vinyl started peeling, which was really heartbreaking because like all the time I put into this. So your materials cost a lot, but your time is probably what you put the most of into a bag. So if you use the wrong materials, it can crush you, it can ruin everything. So that's kind of what we're going to go through today. The first thing we're going to do is printing your pattern. Loads and loads of people ask me about printing patterns. So I know for a lot of you, you do this all the time, you know what you're doing, that's great. But for those who, this is the first time making a bag, just printing the pattern can sometimes feel a bit overwhelming. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, I'm going to try and bring this up on the screen. Let's see how technology goes. Let's see if we can get this to work. Sorry, bear with me whilst I just load this up. It's not going to work for me now, is it? Ah, there we go. Nope. Sorry guys, technical issues, bear with me. There we go. Okay. Right, the first thing you need to do is open up your pattern, and I strongly recommend using Adobe Acrobat. It's a free piece of software that you can get on pretty much every computer. If you can, you want to print your patterns from a computer, because if you print them from a mobile device, you quite often get issues with the size printing out slightly wrong, and it just throws out the whole bag. So it will print it at, say, like 97% or 101%, and it can throw out your whole bag. So if you can get access to a computer, that's the easiest way to do it. You can use Adobe Acrobat, you can download it for free, and on your screen you should be able to see what Adobe Acrobat looks like when it's open. So you can simply go to the print section, and hopefully I can show that to you now. Here we go. Now, the really important thing about printing your pattern is to make sure that you've got it selected as actual size. So hopefully you can see, it's hard because I can't show you the cursor on the screen, but hopefully you can see, sort of in the middle, that it says actual size. You need to make sure that it's not on fit or shrink or a custom scale. Actual size is the only way to make sure that it prints out the actual size. So you'll notice with my patterns I create them with A4 paper and with letter paper. A4 paper is used in the whole world except for America and Canada. And in America and Canada you use letter paper, which is, I think, taller and thinner. I can't remember, but they're slightly different sizes. I produce the two because sometimes you'll have problems printing to your printer with the wrong one. So I've just produced them both. So just make sure if you're in the USA or Canada that you download the letter paper file. If you're in the UK, you download the UK or anywhere else in the world, use the A4 paper. So you're going to print it at actual size. Now the only pages that you need to print are the ones that have shapes on them. So I'm just going to try and show that one to you. No, it's not going to show it to me. Bear with me. Okay, so the only ones that you need to print are pages 20 to 23. Now the reason for that is because 20 to 23 has your all-important cutting chart. It also has your labels, which I strongly recommend using because otherwise you just end up losing track of what's what. And sometimes if there's similar sized pattern pieces, you can use like the wrong pocket piece in the wrong place. Now the pages that it asks you to print are ones that like this, that have odd shapes on them. All the other pages have large rectangles on, so you can just cut them straight from these measurements here. You don't need to print them. But if you want to print them, you can. I know for some people, if you are using centimetres, like metric, then you'll want to maybe print them because you don't want to have to convert the inches. So if you want to print them, you also need to print pages 24 to 32. And then you've got all of your pattern pieces. But if you're happy to cut from measurements, just print the ones, everything that's showing on the first page of the pattern. So you can see here, it says exactly which ones you need to print. Hopefully that all makes sense. Now I get a lot of questions about cutting as well, so we're going to show you that. So that's where we're going to start now. So Deb, have we got any questions that we need to answer so far?
We've just got one, which is what is a substitute for decoval light, but I don't know if you want to do that.
Oh yes, so I'll do that in a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there isn't really a substitute, but we can talk about alternatives. Right, bear with me whilst I just bring the other camera. Here we go. Right. So, a lot of people ask me about printing your patterns now, about cutting. Now, before you start cutting anything, check your test square. So you'll see that I've got a 2 inch by 2 inch because sometimes if it's out by 2 or 3%, you're not going to notice. So that's why we've got a 2 inch by 2 inch square. So the first thing you want to do is just check that that is definitely 2 inches by 2 inches exactly. If it's out by a tiny bit, just 3%, it can throw off everything. So make sure it's exactly 2 inches by 2 inches. I've already checked mine earlier before we start cutting. If it's different, you need to try and change your printer settings. Sometimes people even just end up printing it at, say, 101% or something just to get it to the right size because it won't print. If you get really, really desperate, you can actually make the bag at, say, 97%, but your straps and things like that, you need to make sure that you're using the correct measurements because otherwise it can throw it out a bit. So Debbie's just going to show you like how you cut out because I know for some of you just do this all the time, but I do get a lot of questions about this. So you just want to cut on the lines. And it's as simple as that, really. You don't want to cut to the sides of the lines, you just want to cut straight down the centre of the lines. Yes, exactly. And somebody said, check the ring measurements are the same. Yeah, check your measurements on everything. So you'll notice on my pattern pieces that they all have measurements. That's because I like to just be a little bit particular about it. So you can probably see that this one's got measurements. This will be like as if it was a rectangle. That's what size fabric piece you're going to need to do it. I also find these helpful because if you're block fusing, you can determine exactly how much fabric you need. So that's why I like to put them on there. If you're using a pattern piece that says cut on fold, just remember that one of these measurements is going to be half of that because we're cutting it on the fold. So when we do the actual fabric cutting in the next session, I'll show you what cut and fold is if you don't know what that is. So you can see what the pattern pieces look like when they're cut out. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. I mean, it helps, but just don't worry too much about it. So that's really all that's involved, I think. Now, I would say when you're using my patterns, I try to make these cutting tables, sorry, it's upside down, these cutting charts. I think it might also be the wrong way around. Let me just see if I can, there we go, okay. So I try to make these as simple as possible and I put all the measurements in here. And what you can do is you can just tick it off as you go, as you've cut each piece out of your fabric. Or what Debbie likes to use this for is like planning her fabrics. So she'll put, especially if she's using like more than one exterior fabric, she'll put that she's using the canvas for this one and the cork for this one, and then she'll sort of mark it all out and plan out what she's going to do with her bag. So it's really good for that as well. And you'll notice down here you've got your notions. So this is your zips that you need and things like that and everything else. So that's pretty much it for printing. It's pretty straightforward.
What about the one that you stick together?
Yes, so the next thing is sticking together pattern pieces. So if you've decided to print out all the rectangular pieces, then you're going to have some that need to be stuck together. So Debbie's just going to show you how to stick those ones together, because I get a lot of questions about this as well, about whether you overlap and that sort of thing. So has everybody managed to print theirs out already successfully? Is anybody having any problems with them? These tabs and cutting tabs. Ah, thanks. Yes, I do that as well. I try and use like I've got like a whiteboard marker for, I've laminated my cutting charts, and then what I do is I use a whiteboard marker to mark them, and then I can just wipe it off when I'm done. It's really handy because then you can use it over and over. Okay, so Debbie's almost done with cutting this one out.
And I always forget to cut on fold.
Yeah, it says cut on fold. Don't forget, if you're getting ahead and you're cutting now rather than in the next session, then just remember. So when I've got pieces that don't fit onto one piece of paper, what I do is I match them up with arrows and symbols. So this circle matches with the circle, so you know you've got the right pieces going together. And what you want to do is just butt them up against each other and sellotape that together. So don't overlap. I know some people want to like overlap and match the symbols. Don't do that. You just want to butt them up against each other and sellotape that. And now when you measure this, the measurement should be correct, bearing in mind that this one is a cut on fold again. Okay, so hopefully that is all the printing stuff taken care of, and hopefully everybody's going to be able to get their pattern printed and ready to go. Oh yeah, so we'll get to the interfacing shortly. Okay, oh, somebody's got it going to the printers. Yeah, I'd love to use a printer. It would be even easier because then you can send them the A1 file. So if anybody wants an A1 file for the printers, just let me know, because I do have them on request. Okay, so the next step is going to be choosing our fabrics. This is the hardest part. Sorry, Debs, what are you saying?
That you dropped my fabric on the floor.
I did drop your fabric on the floor, sorry. Okay, so choosing fabrics is going to be one of the most important parts. Okay, so Debbie's lined up like her favourite choices because she's going to be doing the actual sewing. And this is what she's picked out. Sorry, Debs, it was so neat and I ruined it. Okay, so she's picked out 4 options, and we were kind of hoping that you guys would give your input on this, but what we're going to talk about first is fabrics. So non-stretchy fabrics are the best for bag making. Like cotton and canvas are great. If you want to use stretchy fabrics, you can, and you can use, I've used cotton lycra, French terry, but they're a little bit harder. I would interface them before you cut them, and just bear in mind that they're actually quite thick. Sometimes they're thicker than canvas, and that can make it more challenging to sew, so just bear that in mind. So when you're choosing your fabrics, the most important thing is to make sure that it's within your machine's capabilities. If you're using a domestic sewing machine like me, don't choose like really thick vinyl for the outside and really thick waterproof canvas for the lining, because you're not going to be able to top stitch it. Remember, when you get to the top, where's my Momexa gone? It's on the floor.
Can't see you, Joe.
Oh yes, sorry, you can't see me. Let's send that one. Okay. Okay. Now remember, when you get to the top, when you're top stitching a bag, you have got loads of layers going on where these seams are. So the exterior seam doesn't match the lining, so that makes it easier and less bulky, but it's still, I mean, you've got 6 layers that you're going through. Bear that in mind when you're choosing your fabrics. So we're going to look at a few different fabrics and sort of decide what we're going to use. So let me just figure this out. Okay, right. We got some waterproof canvas. This is so popular right now. But we've got 300 denier, which is half the thickness of a lot of ones I've seen. A lot of people use 600, which is great, but I don't think my machine can handle it. So we've got 300 denier, which we're going to look at using for linings. This is great because it is really, really waterproof. So I'll just get some water and show you what I mean. And hopefully, oh, I don't think that's quite enough. Okay. Whoop. Okay, hopefully you just saw that just pour straight off the edge there. It's really waterproof. So that's great for a bag lining. It's really nice to sew when it says 300 denier. That is one option for your lining. Another option is just plain cotton. Sorry, Debs, it's just there. So we've got plain cottons. Another option could be canvas. So we've got canvas here. So this is like a light little canvas. So you've got lots of options for your linings. Cotton canvas or light waterproof canvas is generally what I would be going for. For the exterior, you've got loads more choices, and I think the exterior is where you need to be really, really careful. So what we've got vinyl. Now, like I said, with vinyl, be careful, because I've had cheap vinyl and it's just not endured, and it's really upsetting when you finish a whole bag and then the bag's ruined by the bad vinyl. So this pink stuff is from Emmeline Bags. In the UK, they sell it through So Hot, and it's called Rex Faux Leather, I think it's called. It comes in loads of colours, and I haven't had any problems with it at all. It's really, really nice. And also it's very domestic machine friendly, because it's quite thin and it's not like sticky. So be aware, if you get like glitter vinyl and all the really cool vinyls, they're harder to sew because they kind of stick to your presser foot. So then you need to use like a walking foot or a Teflon foot. But sometimes even with a walking foot and Teflon foot, I just have a nightmare with sticky vinyls. So the Rex isn't sticky at all. It's like really, really easy to sew. Definitely the easiest vinyl I've ever sewn. They also do one called Mora Faux Leather, which is really nice as well. Okay, even easier, if you want to try something even easier for the exterior, is cork. So we've got a few different corks here. Cork is super easy to sew, but it's really expensive. I think for this vinyl I paid £15 a metre, and for the cork I think it cost me £40 a metre, so it's like way more expensive. So I don't use it for everything, I just use it for like straps, base of the bag, that sort of thing, things that need a lot of sort of protection from the elements, that sort of thing. So it's waterproof, so it's quite good for that. So that's why for my exteriors normally I use like a cotton or a canvas, and then I mix it up with cork. So I reckon there's probably loads of people on here who can recommend places to get nice vinyl and nice cork. So Linda, in the UK I get the M-Line bag stuff from So Hot, so it's called sohot.co.uk, and if you type Rex Faux Leather, just R-E-X, into their search, you'll find it. There's loads of colours. I've got some blue, I think, and some white as well. Burlap. Tessa, what is burlap? You're going to have to tell me. I'm really intrigued. Oh, a Singer Star. Okay, yeah, that would be tough. Waterproof canvas. There's a lot of waterproof canvas junkies at the moment. It's like really, really popular, and I've got to admit I love it, but the stuff that I see normally is 600 denier. I can't sew through it, not when I get through the layers. Cork, for cork I use MB Cork, who are based in Portugal, or I use some of this has come from tanyafabric.co.uk, and in America I hear a lot of recommendations for I think it's called Fabric Funhouse, and I think there's another place called M&M. So if you're looking for cork in America, somebody might be able to confirm that. I'm pretty sure they're called Fabric Funhouse, that I hear. Sonar, she recommends them. Sally Tomato, yeah, okay, that's another one that I've heard of. Thanks, Onita. Okay, so vinyl, I love Emmeline bags, you can probably guess. They're based in Canada, so I think that's quite easily available in America and Canada. So, choose your fabrics. That is going to be the hardest bit. So, we were kind of hoping for your your opinions, really. Debbie's got 4 plans for bags.
I think blue is winning at the moment.
Is it? Oh, okay. So we've got the blue, which is seahorses with a plain blue waterproof canvas and a sort of off-white cork. Then we've got the art gallery fabric with purple lining and pink vinyl accent for the exterior. And over here we've got this Rifle Paper Co. cotton with yellow canvas lining and like a minty green kind of cork colour. And then lastly we've got brown cork with this, I can't remember, I think it's Dashford Studio for the exterior with bright pink lining. So if you could kind of give your opinions, that would be great, because this is the hardest part, choosing your fabrics, and we're not really sure which ones to go for, so cast your votes. Oh, Cork Supply, thank you Tammy, that's the one I was thinking of, in Canada. They're really good for cork apparently. So Sweetness in America, yeah, I've heard them as well, they're really good. All cotton exterior, Chris, yes, you can definitely do an all cotton exterior. So this one, hang on, let me check that's in the camera. Okay, this one is all canvas except for the base, which you can see that it's got stained, which I'm really gutted about. Sorry, so the base, yeah, is the vinyl. If you want to put like a vinyl or cork base in, there's not too many layers here. I've designed it so there's not too many layers, so you won't struggle with this. Where you're going to struggle is if you put any cork or vinyl up here. So if you were using cork or vinyl exterior, you could always just do the inside section here. This is called the top lining piece. Let me just check the pattern piece. It's pattern piece D. You could do that in like a cotton and then the exterior in a vinyl, and it would reduce the layers. But if you want to make it as easy as possible and it's your first time, I would just do all cotton. There's no problem with doing all cotton exterior. Personally, I love having a base that's vinyl or cork and a strap just for durability. Okay, Debs, what questions have we got?
So Angela Ross, I've probably pronounced it wrong if you actually are Portuguese, sorry. She's from Portugal. Where can she get vinyl from?
Oh, vinyl in Portugal. Oh, that's a hard one actually. I don't know if Serial Bag Makers does vinyl, but it might be worth checking because she's in Belgium, so she's great for Europe for like hardware and interfacing and that sort of thing. I don't know if she does vinyl. So Hot UK used to ship to the whole of Europe and was really good for that, but Brexit has changed that. So I'm going to hope that someone else could answer that. Anybody recommend like a European supplier for vinyl? That would be great.
And also Teresa would like to know where Europeans buy their hardware. So
oh yeah, so that's
awesome.
Serial Bag Makers. That's who I've been recommended about in the past. She is based in Belgium. Apparently her prices are really good. I've heard really good stuff about her hardware. I've not used it myself, but I've heard really good stuff about her hardware. You do need to take a mortgage out for cork. Yes. That is true. It is so expensive. Bodie O for faux leather. Yeah, okay, I've seen some like really cool faux leather, and by the way, I'm just going to say faux leather and vinyl, I have no idea what the difference is. Some people call it vinyl, some people call it faux leather. From what I can tell, they're actually the same thing or very similar. Emmeline, oh, I didn't know Emmeline sell cork as well in Canada, so there's loads of Canadian companies. Oh, we've got a bit of a mix going on here. I think maybe the blue seahorses are winning, Debs.
I think it is just about, yeah. And we do have seahorse zippers to match, so.
Yeah, it is true. Okay, right, I think we're going to be looking at using the Seahorse mix. So the other thing to mention is when you're using vinyl and cork, you don't want to use universal needles normally. Normally I use Microtex needles, so I know everybody's going to have different ones, but for me, I use Schmetz. Interestingly, I've used Schmetz and I've also used Hemline, and then recently I tried another brand, can't remember the name, but it's quite a big brand of needles, and they kept breaking on me. So if you have trouble with needles breaking, it might actually be worth trying different brands, because for me it's made a huge difference using these ones. So Microtex needles, that is what you want for vinyl and cork. They work brilliantly on vinyl and cork, and for cotton and canvas I just use universal needles. Right, I think that's pretty much.
Tessa would just like to know where you got your rivet press from as well.
My rivet press is amazing, but I got it from wish.com, and I wouldn't recommend that anybody buys from wish.com, because it's a nightmare trying to get parts for it, and trying to figure out which suppliers' dyes go in it. So these are the dyes, this bit and this bit. I have no idea why they're called dyes. But you can change them so that you can use them for rivets, for hole punches, for fitting snaps, all sorts of things. These presses are amazing. But you see, sort of like the size of mine, it can be completely different to other people's, and different brands make different ones. So if you get a press from like Cam Snaps or something like that, then you know you can go back to Cam Snaps and buy the dyes you need. Whereas if you buy it from wish.com, you're never going to have a clue which dyes you need to buy. That is the problem that I've found. But it does work brilliantly. I haven't had any issues with it at all. Okay, so it looks like we're going... let me just find that. It looks like we are going with the blue seahorses. Yeah, denim needle. I love a denim needle as well. If I am going through a lot of canvas, then it's really good. Brexit is a problem. Yes, it is. Getting cork is so much harder and more expensive now. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to be going with the seahorses. So I always say choose your fabrics first, because once you've chosen your fabrics, then you can choose your stabilisers. So what we'll talk about now is stabilisers. So Debs, do you mind just like putting all that over there? Okay, so stabilisers is probably the most complex part of bag making. I think most people would agree. I still find it confusing. There's just so many different brands. All the different countries have different brands. So somebody in America will say they use SF101, but we don't really have that over here. It gets really, really confusing, and you don't know whether you want foam or Decaville light or fleece. There's just so many options. So we're going to try and go through a few and show you the differences. And a lot of it depends on what fabrics you're using. So we're going to be going with canvas for the exterior to complement the cork. So if you're using cork or vinyl, generally, like my cork is 1 millimetre thick. I don't use an interfacing on that. It's absolutely fine on its own. It's quite sturdy. It's got a nice backing on it already. So I don't use anything on that. When I'm using vinyl, I don't tend to either. If it was really, really thin vinyl, I might interface it, but generally I don't. Generally, I just use it as it is. So when I'm talking about interfacing, I'm talking about like woven interfacing and non-woven interfacing. Decaville light, Peltex, foam, all of that stuff I class as stabilisers, so we'll do that in a minute. So interfacing first of all. So let's look at the canvas. Fabrics always have like a tiny bit of stretch, just a little bit, and they fray quite a bit on the edges. So you can see here it just frays on the edge. That's where interfacing comes in. Interfacing is brilliant. It stops stretch, it stops it from fraying, and it also thickens it up and gives it like a good sturdiness, which is great for bag making. It makes the fabric more durable. So we're going to look at woven interfacing and non-woven interfacing. So let's start with non-woven, sorry. We have got, let's just show that to you. There you go. Vilene, used to be called Vilazilene, F220. This is easily available in Europe. In America and other places, I think you normally use like Craft Fuse 808 by Pellon. I think that's the most common non-woven that's used. So non-woven is like, it's a bit papery. That's the best way I can think to describe it. It gives like a crisper finish. So I don't want that on the exterior of my bag, because on the exterior of the bag, I want it to feel like fabric. I want it to sit like fabric and drape like fabric. But in my pockets, I often use woven interfacing, non-woven interfacing, because it's about a quarter of the price. It is so much cheaper. So I use it in all my pockets. If I was doing these, I would use non-woven. If I'm doing a strap, I use non-woven. It's just so much cheaper. So that's why I tend to say in my patterns about using non-woven. If you want to use woven for everything, go ahead. If you don't have any, that is absolutely fine. So you can see that this is kind of papery. Whereas if we have a look at the woven, you can see that it's a lot more like fabric. So it rips, when you rip it, you can see that it's actually got a weave, which means it drapes quite nicely. It's not papery. The fabric still feels like fabric when it's got this interfacing on it. It's really nice. It doesn't have like that crispiness to it. So they give quite different finishes, but yeah, like I said, this is a lot more expensive. So this is Vilene G700, which is the most common woven interfacing that I've come across here in Europe. In America, they use SF101, and they also have loads of other like brands that are slightly thicker. I can't seem to find anything like that in Britain, but you have like Sewfuse by Carstein, handcrafted. There's a few others that are like branded ones which are thicker and give a really nice finish, and they're a bit cheaper as well. But unfortunately, I cannot seem to find that here in the UK. We do have cheaper versions, but in my opinion, I always end up going with G700 because it's guaranteed to give me a nice finish. I've never had any problems with it. I've never had it like bubbling under the fabric or coming unpeeled. I've never had any issues. It just makes the fabric look so good. And if you buy it on a bulk like this, it ends up being like £3 a metre instead of £7. So if you can make your way through 25 metres, it's really worth it. Okay, so I'm just going to check whether we've got any questions. Hi everyone. Cam snaps. Yeah, cam snaps is really highly recommended. Everybody says they're great. And the trimming shop in the UK, if you want going back to the press, if you want a press, trimming shop is great. Okay, so that's the interfacing. So you'll notice in your pattern, in your chart, you've got non-woven and woven. So the non-woven is purely because you just don't need to use woven in it. And in my opinion, like if I can save, then I will, because it's a quarter of the price. It just seems like worthwhile for me to use non-woven wherever I can. So you can see that I'm just using it in the pockets and things like straps. It also gives like a nice crispy finish, which sometimes is nicer in pockets. Okay, if you're using waterproof canvas, I don't recommend interfacing it. That's kind of one of the biggest appeals of using waterproof canvas, is that you don't have to interface, because interfacing is a faff. Even though this is only 300 denier, it's still heavier, quite a bit heavier than standard cotton. So I don't interface it at all. I just use it as it is. It's got no stretch, it's not going to fray, so I don't see any need to interface it. So that is like a huge plus for using waterproof canvas. This stuff, by the way, I got from Little Stitcher Sews in the UK, for anybody that's wondering. Okay, so that's interfacing.
Linda's just asking, how often do you change your needles?
How often do I change my needles? All the time. I go through a lot. Because I'm on a domestic machine, I figure that I need to give my machine the best possible chance of making it through, and a sharp needle, it just really helps. So I probably change mine every 1 or 2 bags. I try to change it just before I do the top stitching, because the top stitching is the hardest part. It's the most layers, and basically if I'm going to put a new needle in, I'll do it when I'm doing the top stitching.
And also, Laura would like to know, where do you buy a bolt of G700 in the UK?
Oh, so you can get it from sesimons.co.uk. They're based in Bristol, and they'll sell you, as long as you want a bolt, they'll sell you a bolt of G700, or they also do the non-woven, and they do fleece and foam and all that sorts of things, so it's quite good. Okay, so for the exterior canvas, I'm going to use my interfacing. For my lining, I'm not going to use any interfacing, and for my cork, I'm not going to use any interfacing. So stabilisers will again depend on your fabrics. If you're using super thick vinyl because your machine can handle it, then you're not going to need as much in the way of stabilisers. But if you're using cotton, you definitely need stabilisers. So if you're doing an all cotton bag, you definitely want foam, because you're going to need the sturdiness. So this bag is all canvas, and this has got foam in it, and you can kind of see it's got a nice amount of sturdiness. It holds its shape. Anything less than foam, I think it would really struggle. But if you're using all vinyl, you're using all cork, you can definitely use Decaville Light instead. So foam is like my favourite. I hated it when I first started sewing. Now I love it. I sew it in because you can get fusible, but I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but I can't get the fusible foam to look any good. It just wrinkles my fabric like crazy, no matter what I do. So that's your foam. This is, what's this called? This is made by Vilene, I think, and I'm trying to remember. I know in America you've got By Annie's Soft and Stable, and some other brands. Let me just have a look at what they are. So this is called Styleville, and I think in America and other places you get Bosal and R-Form, yeah, Pellon Flex Foam, and Annie's Soft and Stable. So you've got a few different options. I think they're all pretty similar. Some people use Headliner foam, which is cheaper, and it's originally for like the roof of cars, but it's not as thick. So just be careful. Make sure that you've got something that's going to give your bag the shape that it needs. So that's your foam. Debs, could you bring over the big, huge roll of Decaville? Okay, so Decaville Light I feel like it's a huge craze. It's really popular. You can probably guess I bought a whole bolt of it. I don't know how I'm ever going to get through it, but there you go. Now, Decaville, you can see, it's nothing like foam. It's thinner. And yeah, it gives you quite a lot of sturdiness. It's a bit like, it almost feels like it's turning your fabric into leather. It's funny, you fuse it on, so make sure that you cut it so that it's not going to be in your seams, because you don't want to be sewing through it. It's just a massive amount of extra bulk. It's funny, I can't find anything like Decaville. Some people say it's a bit like 809, Pellon 809, but we don't really have that here, I don't think. Not much. I think I did buy some because I wanted to know what it's like, and yeah, this is 809. But I don't know, I don't think they're really comparable. I haven't honestly found anything like Decaville. It's just different to everything else. It's nice because it's so much thinner than foam, so your bag isn't so like puffy. but it's not quite as sturdy. So let me just find you a bag with this in. Can you just grab me that Momexa, Debs? Okay. So this Momexa is made with foam, nice and sturdy, you know, kind of like, it's got the stand-upiness, it'll just regain its shape. This Momexa,
It's got paper inside.
oh yeah, it's got some paper inside. Okay, you can kind of see, it's more slouchy. This has got Decaville, so this is just Decaville light. So it's not as puffy. It's thinner, but you know, like with the foam, you wouldn't really get this corner slouching like this, but you do with the Decaville. It's very malleable. It's different. It's not the same. So a lot of people interchange the two, which is great. It's fine. It works great. It's just going to be slightly slouchier. So if you want to use Decaville light instead of foam, go for it. It'll be absolutely fine, especially in a bag this size. You'll be absolutely fine. And if you're using a thick fabric like vinyl or cork, you might prefer to use Decaville light. Just remember that Decaville light is fused on, and you want to test fusing onto like a scrap piece of vinyl first, because every now and then some vinyls don't take the heat and they can destroy your vinyl, and you want to make sure that you test it on a scrap piece before you go ahead and just like stick the iron straight down on your almost finished bag. Okay, so that's Decaville light. Right, I'm just going to have a look at a couple of other interfacings that I think you guys might want to know about. Are there any other questions, Debs?
No.
Sorry.
Not that I saw.
Got Debbie here with me. Okay, so fleece. This is a low loft fleece. You could use this if you wanted to. I don't know about others, but I really don't get on with fleece. I've tried it time and time again, but it kind of ends up looking wrinkly and puffy, and I just don't like it. But fleece is another option if you want your bag to be more slouchy. So the pattern for the Momexa calls for foam, but if you want to use something else, go ahead. If you want a slouchier bag, you can use fleece. If you want slightly slouchier, you can use Decaville light. If you've only got Decaville light, go ahead. Don't buy foam in especially for it. It'll be fine. Kind of use what you've got, but make sure that it suits your materials. Okay. The final stabiliser that you're going to need, so you're using foam or equivalent in the main panels and in the side. But in the base, you want it to be a little bit more sturdy. So the final stabiliser that you're going to want is for your base. And for this, you can use pretty much any firm stabiliser. This is Pelon S520. This is really thick. I mean, you can probably, it's not actually thick, it's really sturdy. It's dense for what it is. That's great for bag bases. You could use Peltex 71F or 70, because 71F is fusible and 70 is just not fusible. Either will be fine, you can work with, you can just glue it in if you need to. This again you can see is quite sort of cardboardy, for lack of a better word. So that's great for bag bases. And the last option is Decaville Heavy or Decaville 1. This is twice the thickness, I think, of Decaville Light. It's really, really sturdy. It's great, again, for bag bases. Or if you wanted to, some people just use like a piece of plastic for their base. So, you know, you can kind of go with whatever you've got lying around and whatever suits you. For the bag base, you just want something that's going to be firm. Okay, so I think that is all the stabilisers I wanted to cover. So, do you just want to let me know, Debs, if there's any questions about interfacing and stabilisers?
So 3 people have just asked about what Outtro firm stabiliser you use for the base, but I think we've just
Oh
covered
yeah,
that
so that is the
delay.
S520, Decaville Heavy or Peltex 71F. Anything that's like, hopefully you can hear that. You can hear that it's kind of like cardboardy, almost a bit plasticky. Anything like that's great. And we keep it out of the seams, so you're not going to sew through it. It's not going to matter that it's really, really thick. So is that everything for us on the stabiliser? Anybody got any questions on stabilisers and interfacings? Okay, I'm just checking that there's no questions before we move on. You've all just got to wait for my little pause here.
Tessa's just said she's got a press-on Pellon that I use, that I have to double it. That would give me the look like the Decaville Light.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think maybe that's like 809 or something. There's something that is a bit like that, yeah. Yeah, 2 layers of 809. I think that is what somebody's recommended once before. I've not tried it though. I do like Decaville Light, but I realise it's really, really expensive, depending where you are. I think it's made by Vilene and they're in Europe, so I think it's probably cheaper for us guys here than it is elsewhere in the world.
Do you use interfacing with canvas? Tammy's asked.
Oh yes, I do use interfacing with canvas. So I always do, because it tends to, what is the word I'm looking for? It does this. Sorry, lost my words. You know, the threads come loose on the sides, so I do interface it because I don't want it to come apart. And I just think it needs a little bit of extra strength. I want my bags to last a really, really long time, and it makes quite a difference to like the durability of the fabric when you add interfacing. So anything cotton based, I always add some interfacing. Okay, I think we're good. I think we're good to move on. Okay, so for your Momexa, you need to decide before you start whether you want the additional features. So there is an exterior zip option. So you need to decide whether you want that or not. Unfortunately, I don't have one with me right now that has the zip on because they all have found homes. So you need to decide whether you want the exterior zip pocket. If you want the exterior zip pocket, make sure that you cut 4 of pattern piece K. Okay, so that's really the only difference, and you're going to need the extra bit of zip. That's the only difference if you want the exterior pocket. The other thing to bear in mind, if this is your first ever bag and you're really, really nervous, you can skip the O-rings if you want to. It's not going to make a difference to the structure of the bag. If you go on my website and look at the Momexa, you can see one of my testers made it without the O-rings, so you can see what it looks like. I love it with the O-rings. I feel like it's like one of its really cool features, but if this is your first ever bag and you're really nervous, maybe just consider leaving them out, or if you can't get hold of these O-rings. What else is there to think about? If you don't want a crossbody bag, you can add handles instead to the O-rings. So this is the Momexa. You can see it's got like a similar ring design. If you want to, you can add handles instead. Just something to consider. I've seen a few people do it. If you don't want to make a crossbody bag, now's the time to like decide this sort of thing. If you want to make adjustments during the sew along, just decide on it now. Okay, hardware is important. So let's just go back to the overhead camera. Let me just bring that back. Okay. So for this bag, this is what we're going for. I would say it's a tough call between whether you decide on hardware first or whether you decide on zips. So I guess it depends what you've got available to you. So I'm going to show you the most common colours of hardware. So you've got gunmetal, Rainbow. This is a lot harder to come across, especially for the rings. But I do love a bit of rainbow hardware. Got brass, which is like a really nice classical look. Got rose gold, which is also known as copper. Silver, which is also called nickel. And lastly, we've got gold. Don't ask me why, but gold tends to be the most expensive one. I'm assuming it hasn't got real gold in it, but it does seem to be the most expensive. So these are the most common colours that you get in your hardware. With your hardware, I really recommend getting high quality hardware, because if you put like hours of work into making a bag and the hardware is no good and it breaks or something like that, it's just going to waste all of your time. So I strongly recommend really thinking about your hardware. So the O-rings are going to be the hardest part to get hold of. If you are in the UK, you can get them from So Hot UK or Bag Making Bling. If you're in the USA, you can get them from Saya Swag, and there's another place but I can't remember it. Canada, you can get them from Emmeline Bags. I don't actually know how you say it. And if you're in Europe, I think maybe Cereal Bag Makers has some, but I'm not 100% sure. But one of my testers couldn't get hold of them, and she just used 35mm curtain rings. So she just got them from the local hardware shop. So that's something else to think about.
Also, a couple of people are asking, can you use rectangle ring?
Oh yeah, you can use rectangle rings, yes. I have seen quite a few people use rectangle rings. It looks quite different, but it works, so long as where the rectangle ring meets here is 3/4 of an inch. So this edge needs to be 3/4 of an inch, and over here, yeah. So you can definitely use rectangle rings, that's absolutely fine. The other thing to remember with O-rings, these are 1.5 inch ones, but hopefully you can see the difference between these two. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Let me just put my light up a bit. Okay. Hopefully you can see that this one is a lot thicker than this one. Don't know why it is, but different suppliers have different types of rings and they just come in different thicknesses. And that makes a difference to the size of the straps. So when we go through the pattern, you'll notice that I've made an allowance for this to be trimmed down depending on the size.
Yeah, so Karen has just asked that she says she's got a couple of O-rings or key rings that are a bit smaller than the pattern requires. Can I use those for this pattern?
Yeah, you can use them if they're a little bit smaller, but just make sure that you can fit the 3/4 of an inch strap around. If you can't, you could always make this slightly narrower. You could do that. Another option, yeah, no, I'd say that's probably the easiest way actually, is just to make this a little bit narrower if you need to. But I think it's ones that are slightly smaller should be fine. And I would just make this strap, which is pattern piece F, I would cut it like a couple of inches longer, just to make up for the fact that you might have to, it might have to be a little bit longer on each section. So just cut them a little bit longer. You can always trim them down, but you can't add something on afterwards.
Okay, and also DG McRae, I think that's how you say it, for the crossbody straps, if you're using cork, I assume it's okay to piece them together?
It is, but I have found that piecing together cork or vinyl can kind of get bulky, and what you end up with is where your strap slider is, it can be hard to get it through because you've got like a really bulky section. So generally, cork and vinyl should come in 54 inches wide. So even if you only buy like a long quarter, or you buy half a metre, or if you buy a metre, it should always be 54 inches wide. And so you can cut your strap from that 54 inches and that will be great for your strap. That way you don't have to have a join, because you can do a join, but the bulk can be a problem and sometimes it can cause an issue with your slider. So I try to avoid it. Cotton and canvas, no problem. joins are not a problem in the slightest. Okay, so I'm just trying to think what else we need to think about. So we need rectangle rings for this pattern, so I'll just grab some. Typically, I can't find any at this exact moment, but what I was going to say was, for a lot of people, if you don't have rectangle rings in, then you can instead use swivel clasps and D-rings. So the rectangle rings are just here to attach the strap on. Now, if you want to, this is a different bag. This is my new pattern. You can do D-rings and swivel clasps instead. It's not a problem. It's not going to make a difference. So if you don't have rectangle rings in, you can just swap them out for this. Okay, so I'm just trying to think what else we need to cover with regards to hardware. Just let me know if you've got any questions. I think we've got the tassel cap. That's optional. So the tassel cap is just a cool little extra feature. Rivets are optional. I think it looks great with rivets, but if you don't have a rivet press or any of the tools, then you might want to give them a miss, and we can just sew up to them instead. So that's another option. The zip tail, I'll show you, that's an option. That is the zip tail. So in the pattern, you've got the option to do a fabric one, where you just create it from your fabric, or you can put a hardware one on. I just like the way these look, and they just feel a lot less faffy. Okay, I think it's probably all the hardware. So Debbie's just grabbed me some rectangle rings. So when you're choosing your rectangle rings, you need to decide whether you're doing the 1-inch strap or the 3/4 inch strap. So in the pattern, you've got the option to do the crossbody at 3/4 inch or 1 inch. I generally only ever have 1-inch hardware in, so I'm just going to use 1 inch. But you can do 3/4 inch. It looks really, really nice with a 3/4 inch strap, but you need to then have all the hardware. So what you're going to need is, you're going to need your rectangle rings. You're going to need 2 of those, your strap slider, and your O-rings. Now, strap sliders, Emmeline do these wide ones. So this is a standard strap slider, but this is a very, very thin vinyl. If you have an all vinyl or all cork strap, you're going to want to use bigger sliders, so you can kind of see how much bigger this one is. Let's just pull out a standard one. Okay, so that's the standard one, and that's the wide one. You can see that is a massive difference. If you're doing all cork straps or all vinyl straps, I find I have to use one of these because it just can't fit through this tiny little thing. But if I'm doing an all cotton or all canvas strap, then these are great. So you need to choose what colour hardware you're going to use. What did you think you're going to decide, Debs? I think we were having a debate on this.
It was because I chose the zip first.
Oh yeah, so she thinks she knows what zips she wants to use. So you need to choose your zips for your exterior pocket and your top. Zipper tape is so easy to use. I love zipper tape. It just means that you can cut it exactly the size you need it. So I think we were tempted to go for this. You might be able to tell this is actually gold tape, but the brass seems to go really well with it, so we're gonna go with it.
And importantly, it's a seahorse. So.
Yeah, and the zipper pull is a seahorse, so we had to use that. Okay, so zipper tape, you literally just... This is going to be the one time that I can't do it, isn't it? Yeah. You just feed it on one side at a time, and then you just hold it down as you pull the zip on. I love zipper tape. I just think it's a lot easier. You can get any colour you want. There's so many colours out there, and you can get the zipper tape from so many different places. So just in the UK, I know you can get some from So Hot. You can get some from Bag Making Bling. You can get some from Tanya Fabric. In America, there's loads of places. Sally Tomato make them. What is it called? Saya Swag. Sorry, she's got loads. In Europe, you've got Cereal Bag Makers. In Canada, you've got Blue Colour Patterns, Emmeline Bags, and Zipper Valley. So yeah, you've got loads. You've got absolutely loads to choose from. But zipper tape is just great because of the choice of colours. You can get pretty much anything you want. So that's why we're actually doing this Sewalong part 2 weeks before the others, because I thought that you guys are going to want to order stuff in and make sure that you've got everything that you need. And if you want to order stuff like zipper tape or zipper pulls, you need time to get that sorted.
Okay, so we've got a couple of questions.
Okay, go for it.
I'm sorry if I'm butchering people's names. Dejana, I think, said she's a bit late with the cork question, but where do you get your tobacco colour cork?
Oh, I get that from MB Cork in Portugal. I can't find that colour anywhere else, but since Brexit, it's very expensive to get it to the UK, so I kind of bought a load before Brexit, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do when I run out.
Okay, and Konsu has said, beautiful bag, what is the final size of the bag?
The final size. I know, I've got this written down somewhere. Let me just find it. Okay, it's going to be 8 inches tall by 8.5 wide, and it's 4.5 inches deep on the base. So, I'm wondering if we've got anything that we can show you. Oh, I've got some sunglasses. That might help with an idea of size. Okay, sorry, my table's getting a bit busy, but you can kind of see. Nope, the light's not quite going in right, but you can kind of see the size of the sunglasses in the bag, hopefully. Ooh, that's not a great clear shot, is it? But there you go. Oh yeah, do you want to give me a bit of light, Debs?
I was going to compare the phone size.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea.
So that's a standard iPhone 11.
Okay, so that's a standard iPhone 11. So yeah, it's great. I use mine for like my phone, keys, mask, wallet, just the daily stuff really. I just kind of throw everything in, and I love it for that. If you're doing the exterior zipper pocket, it fits a standard iPhone 11. Yeah, fits that absolutely perfectly. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, so Anne would like to know what colour tape is that?
And it's actually like a light grey, but I cannot remember where I got this from. So I'm not going to be much help there.
Okay, and Laura says, what makes a zipper go wavy?
Do you know, I've always assumed that it's the quality of the zip and when you're sewing it in as well. I think because when I first started out, I used to use cheap zippers and I used to have waviness quite a lot, and I can never figure out whether it's because I was using cheap zips or because I was just not very good yet at sewing them. But since I've been using higher quality zips, I don't get wavy zips anymore, and it could just be a combination of my experience and the fact that I'm using better zips.
Okay, and Sandra has said, can you sew over that zipper tape without the needle breaking?
Yes, because these aren't metal. These are nylon teeth, so they look like they're metal, but they're not. If you're using a metal zip, then I would like hand crank over and try to make sure my needle doesn't hit the teeth. But these I never have a problem with. I think I've broken maybe one needle ever on these zips, and I think it was on its way out anyway. So I don't think the zip was necessarily to blame. I think a thick seam could have done it. Oh, so is that it? We're not got any more questions?
That's it for questions.
Okay.
Yep. And sorry, Diana, I've pronounced your name wrong.
Okay, so that is going to be sorting out your fabrics and everything. So hopefully everybody's got an idea of what you want for your hardware, your zips, your fabrics. And you can get everything chosen and ordered, and try and get everything ordered. If you're wondering about anything, where to get it from, just ask. There's probably someone who can recommend where to get it from in your country. Now, I just want to cover before we finish about tools, really. So tools that you're going to need when you're making the Momexa is going to be a cutting mat, absolutely essential. You're going to need a good rotary cutter. This is so much quicker and easier to use than fabric scissors. So mine is a Fiskars one, but you can get them from any kind of sewing or quilting shops. They're just really, really good. You're also going to want a quilting ruler. So mine's got this added handle, which just comes off. But I just find that kind of helps me to hold things down. So you're going to need a quilting ruler and a blade and some fabric scissors, maybe some little thread scissors. They're going to be handy. You're going to need something to stick things down. So I've got Fabri-Tac glue by Beacon, and I've got double-sided tape. If you're using double-sided tape, make sure that it's stuff that you can sew through. Some of the stuff will gum up your needle and your machine. This one I haven't had any problems with. I'll try and put in the video description after it finishes what it's called, but it's from Amazon and I can't quite remember the name. Double-sided tape is just going to save you a lot of time. What else do we need? We need Wonder clips. These are amazing, so much easier than using pins in my opinion for bags, so those are brilliant. And the last thing I recommend is a hump jumper, so I'll just grab mine. Okay, so there's a lot of opinions on hump jumpers. A lot of people prefer to use like a folded up piece of cardboard, but I've got to admit I love using my hump jumper because I can use it as I'm coming down and the needle can come towards it as well, which I can't do with cardboard. These are like £4 or something off Amazon or from a local sewing shop. It's called a hump jumper. Sometimes it's called a bulky seam aid, and I find on my domestic machine I have to use this to get a nice finish, especially when I'm going over the seams for top stitching and that sort of thing. That's absolutely essential. And you're going to want some markers, so something to mark your fabric, maybe some tailor's chalk that you can wipe off, or a friction erasable pen or an error erasable pen. Whatever you use to mark your fabrics, test it on a scrap piece before you start, because I've used cork before with chalk and I drew lines on my cork to quilt it and it wouldn't come off. So just really, really bear that in mind. Whatever you're going to use for marking fabrics, test it on a scrap first, because you don't want to ruin your fabric. So I think that's pretty much all of the tools you're going to need. And a sewing machine, obviously, and some needles. So I feel like that's obvious. So what, you've got more questions, Deb?
Yes, we've got a couple of questions. So will you be showing us how to do the exterior pocket?
Yes, I will be doing the exterior pocket, yes.
Okay, and also, does the Fabri-Tac gum up? Does the Fabri-Tac gum up your needle?
No, not at all, and I don't know why, and I don't know if other glue does, but Fabri-Tac I have never ever had a problem with.
Okay, and Linda says that if you're using vinyl, she uses hair clips.
Yeah, hair clips are really, really good, and I know that Mormino in America, she does, Lauren Mormino, she sells them and she has like really cool rainbow ones and stuff. So yeah, they're even better. Just a warning about Wonder clips. If you use them on cork or vinyl, don't leave them on too long, because sometimes these little dots, they leave marks on the vinyl. Normally you can get them out with like a hairdryer or something like that, like the marks come out, but just be warned. Okay, and actually thread, I should probably cover. Okay, thread. I use a domestic sewing machine, so I can't use like the really thick stuff. I can't use Tex 70, which I think is what industrial machine users use. Up until recently, I've always been using Coates Moon threads. So this is a lot like Gutmann, but it sheds its fluff a bit more, so I have to clean out my machine regularly. But it's really strong. It's 100% polyester, and it is really hard to break. So you can break it, but it's really hard. It's much stronger than cotton, the polyester is, and it's just been really, really good for bags. But recently, I've just started using this, which is Tex 40, and I got this from Little Stitcher Sews in the UK. And this is a little bit thicker and a little bit stronger, but it still works in my domestic machine. So I am loving this. It makes your top stitching like a bit more defined because it's thicker, but it's not so thick that I can't use it in my bobbin, because some people use like Tex 70 on the top of the domestic machine, but you can't use it in the bobbin because it's too thick. This I can use in both, which I really like. So this again is pretty hard to break. I'm actually not sure if... No, there we go. Okay, so it's really hard to break, so it's nice and durable. And that is Tex 40. I think the higher the number, the thicker it gets, and that 45 is too thick, I think. But someone else might be able to just confirm that, because I've never tried it. Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to cover. Any questions at all on threads or anything else that anybody wants to discuss? Because I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today.
Wendy asked what cotton you use, but I think we've just answered that.
What cotton thread?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't use cotton threads in my bags because they're just more prone to breaking, so I use polyester. I say that, but I've never used cotton threads in my bag, so I was just taught never to use them because they break more easily. So I can't actually say that for sure. What else is there? I think that might be everything. Anybody got any final questions? Because this is just the preparation one. So for the next session, what we're going to be doing is actually interfacing our fabrics and cutting all our fabrics. So I'll show you how to cut and fold. I'll show you how to block fuse, because that is my preferred method for interfacing fabrics. It means you only have to cut once, it stops shrinkage, and it just feels a lot easier. And I do it in a way that it doesn't end up with a lot of waste. So we'll go through all of that in the next session. And then session 3 is going to be making the exterior, and session 4 is going to be sewing the lining and finishing off. So hopefully you're all feeling really, really prepared and really organised, and in 2 weeks' time we will start on the next one, cutting and interfacing, and you'll have all your fabrics have arrived by then, and all your threads and all your hardware, and you'll all be ready to go. I'm hoping.
So Hazel's thinking of doing it on her vintage Singer.
Oh yeah. What type of Singer do you have? Oh, sorry, just not sure what I've got going on here. What have I got in front of my camera? Oh, it's that. Sorry guys. Yeah, Hazel, I use my vintage Singer 201 sometimes, and it's really, really good at making bags. No problems whatsoever. It just sews straight through everything. When I do vinyl straps on it, whereas on my Benina 930, I kind of struggle sometimes with vinyl. My Singer 201, no problems, just gets a nice even stitch all the way. It's brilliant. I don't have a walking foot for it or anything. It doesn't need it.
Okay, so Totally Trendy by Cindy has just asked, what size needle do you use with the Tex 40 thread, and is it Microtex?
It depends what material I'm using. So if I'm using cork or vinyl, it's Microtex needle. If it's cotton or canvas, I use a universal needle, and I tend to use a size 70 or 75 on my linings, just on my cotton fabrics, which I can probably tell you what size. Sorry, I know that they're different sizes, aren't they? So okay, a 70 is also known as a size 10. So I use a 70/10 on my cotton linings. I use a 90/14, or I use an 80/12, depending how many layers I've got of vinyl and cork. So when I'm top stitching, I quite often have to stick the 90/14 in. Sorry, Debbie's like, look at the camera. I keep looking at the wrong bit. And if I'm just doing like the outside of the bag and it's not too many layers, then I'll be using the 80 size 12. Do you want to turn that light on for me?
And Terry has just also mentioned that the 40 WT is thicker than the 50. The lower the number, the thicker it goes.
Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way then. Okay, so I was under the impression that Tex 70 was what the industrial guys use, but in that case, I'm not sure. But I do know that this Tex 40 is fantastic, so yeah, works great on my domestic machine. Brilliant. Any more questions, Debs?
No, but Hazel's replied saying that she's using a 99k hand crank.
Oh, 99k, okay, yeah.
And Terry's got a 1591 Singer, which sews through everything.
Yeah, the old Singers are amazing. I know a lot of people just have industrial machines, but if you've got like an old Singer, I got mine for £20 from someone down the road. It needed oiling and everything, but wow, it's amazing. It just goes through anything, and it cost me 20 quid, so yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. Right, guys, I think that's it. I think you're all ready. If you've got any questions during the week, just email me. But we've got a competition going on, so you can win free patterns and possibly a gift voucher for some free zips as well. I just need to confirm that with somebody first. So if you want to enter for the competition, all you got to do is just tag Momexa Sewalong on Instagram or Facebook over the next 2 weeks before the next sew along, and you just need to show us what fabrics you've chosen, what hardware you've chosen. Just send us like a nice little picture of your fabric and hardware choices for what you've decided after today to use, and we will then pick somebody at random this week and next week, and you get a free pattern and possibly some free zips maybe, but that's going to be confirmed later.
Also, there are some great recommendations in the comments for different suppliers for people throughout the world.
Awesome. Okay, so there's some really good recommendations from everybody for suppliers, so make sure that you have a look at the comments for that. Thank you so much, everybody. You've been so great in helping with your comments and with your recommendations. I really appreciate it, because it's hard for me to know about suppliers in different countries, so I really appreciate you guys chipping in. And I love that we've got so many people from all over the world, all different countries. It's been great.
Yeah, we've got Poland with us now as well.
Poland! Oh, that's so nice. Dzień dobry. That's all I know, but that's hello, I think. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And I'm really looking forward to starting the actual sew along and doing interfacing and cutting in 2 weeks' time. So that is going to be, let me just double check the date, 23rd of May. So you've got 2 weeks to get all your fabrics ordered, all your zips ordered, all your amazing stuff like that. You know, if you want to just make it a really special bag, get some like really unique zips or something like that. You can ask me questions in the meantime, but yeah, I hope to see you all then, and we'll get interfacing and cutting and get ready to actually sew the Momexa. Thanks, everybody.